Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Paul, and in my last video I said that I was going to be doing a review of the book Murtagh by Christopher Paolini, and that's what this is, because I have so much that I want to talk about this novel. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those books that I was looking forward to for quite a long time coming out, and it definitely did not disappoint. Now, if you saw my last video, I went into a little bit of review about this. I had some pros, I had some cons. Since then, I have done a little bit more reading, some note-taking, looking at, forums, seeing other people's discussions about it, and I may actually change my rating a little bit by the time this video is done. So yeah, if you're kind of curious to see how that unfolds, definitely stick around. Now, a little bit of housekeeping up front. This is going to be sort of a multi-part review. The first half of this is going to be completely spoiler-free. So if you're someone who hasn't got into the world of Eragon or just hasn't read Murtagh yet, you can watch the first half of this video. Absolutely no problem. It's just going to be my impressions on the book. The second half, however, is for those of you out there who are caught up to date and want to discuss theories, because there are so many fan theories around this book, and I am definitely going to get involved in those conversations for sure. Also, someone on Reddit did like this ridiculous deep dive about mold and fungi. You guys are great. You guys are absolutely fantastic. So just as a heads up, the back half of this video will be fully spoiler filled, not just for the world of Eragon, but for the entirety of the Fractalverse. So if you're not fully caught up on that and don't want to be spoiled, just a heads up there. So let's get started. Let's talk about this book. I think, again, I mentioned it in the last review really lightly. It's like coming home. It's like putting on a favorite cozy sweater. It felt so amazing to return to the world of Alagasia. Like so many, I grew up reading Eragon, that book series. I don't know how many times as a kid I read it, but it was quite a few. So to come back now into this world that we know so well, but through a slightly different POV, was super refreshing. Because in a lot of ways, given the parallels, the intentional parallels between Murtagh and Eragon, you kind of would expect their mindset to be somewhat similar, or at least the way they think and look at the world, but that could not be more further from the truth. And Saphira and Thorn, I think, as characters are so interesting because, again, while they parallel each other in so many ways, they are fundamentally such different characters. Saphira is this very outgoing, over-the-top, mischievous character, and Thorn is so much more reserved, but he has sort of this grim humor underneath that sort of underpins his character, and his protectiveness over Murtagh, I think even more than Saphira has for Eragon, was really interesting throughout. And the way they have to interact with the world because of their nature and situation in it, I thought was really interesting. Now, in terms of traditional high fantasy novels go, this has everything you would come to expect. I mean, this is a bit of a beast. It's almost 700 pages. And that, I do think, is one of my biggest issues with this book. While I enjoy so many different facets of it, it's bloated. It's pretty bloated. I mean, you don't even really get to like the main, I went and checked, you don't get to like the main area of the book where like the majority of the plot happens till almost 350 pages into the book. Page 325, I think, if we want to be specific. And there's a lot that happens in the first half of the book, but most of it doesn't impact the rest of the book. And I think that's my biggest issue. There's some world building for sure, and there's set up for future projects and future novels in the series, but there's really only one small key plot point that, again, I'll discuss at the end of the video, that really, for all intents and purposes, other than telling Murtagh where he needs to go, actually impacts the entire back half of the book. Also, for the record, am I the only person who only recently realized that I was saying Murtagh wrong my entire life? I definitely thought it was pronounced Murtagh. I think I've been like transposing the G and the H in my head ever since I was a kid, but no, so that's definitely my biggest critique. And then is the pacing overall. And I don't think this is alone in this book as an issue. I think Paolini struggled with that in quite a few of his novels. I think To Sleep suffered from it quite a bit. And I talked about Fractal Noise in that last review, and yeah, I had pretty strong opinions on that. So I think in terms of overall pacing, both in sort of the slog that is the back half of some parts of this book, and then the fetch quest element at the start, I think those are probably the two biggest issues. All that being said, there is so many good things to talk about with this book. Like I said, if you are a traditional fan of high fantasy, I would say, Eragon, that whole world and series, is still worth getting into now as an adult. It's not a perfect series by any means. Because when you talk about this book, you really have to talk about the inheritance cycle and all the books that come before it. Like, yeah, it's still Star Wars with dragons. It's still originally, started being written by a 16-year-old or whatever. But if you can sort of take a step back and just sort of enjoy the story and enjoy the world building, you know, and don't look at the pros too critically, then yeah, this one is definitely one to enjoy, just as sort of turn your brain off and, you know, fun things go boom. There is a little bit of teenage angst and some cringe elements around the, I wouldn't say really well handled romance. This book doesn't suffer from that at all. If you're someone who read Eragon when you were younger and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go back to it, you can tell Paolini's grown up with this book. I think the work that he has done on the Fractalverse has well equipped him to be able to come back and say, yeah, I am an adult. This is, you know, more adeptly written. I think technically it's by far his best written book. Again, I had some issues with To Sleep, especially. Some of the dialogue was hilarious and great, and some of it was really weird and stilted, if I'm being honest. I think just given the sort of more linear scope and nature of this book, it was a lot easier to sort of keep on track. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book on the whole. Again, I think I gave it a 4 in that last review, and I think, you know, upon a little bit of further introspection and looking back and doing some more note-taking, I think it probably would end up around a 3.75. I didn't quite appreciate it in the time when I was reading it. I was sort of blitzing through it, just sort of enjoying it for the plot. And there are elements and parts of it that really do drag. So if you're someone who doesn't mind that too much, who really wants to sort of invest into the world building and the lore and is excited about these future projects, it's 100% a must. That's one thing I think is my biggest takeaway from this, is that I'm so excited about where the future of the world of Eragon is going to go, because it's not just the inheritance cycle anymore. It is truly this world of Eragon branding. There is more going on, and there's more happening here, and it does have broader tie-ins to this sort of bigger universe. So yeah, I'm really excited about that and excited to see where this goes. And this book has a really satisfying ending, like a truly satisfying ending. Like there is a big bad that is built up, and there is a final climactic venture with them, and it's a knockdown, drag out adventure at the very end. And there are real elements of pain and struggle that the characters have to go through and overcome. Like it's not a shallow book in that regard. Like it really deals in depth with the trauma that Murtagh and Thorn dealt with when they were children, essentially, especially for Thorn. I mean, literally, and this is a dragon who is hatched in captivity, and how does he deal and progress with that? And I thought it was tastefully done. I mean, it's clearly something that Paolini did some research on, spoke to people who've experienced similar, you know, levels of discomfort. In this case with Thorn, it's, you know, fear of closed spaces. And that's something that I think he did a really good job of handling. So if you're someone who is looking for a fun dragon romp that's not Fourth Wing, definitely check out Murtagh. Okay, that is where my non-spoiler review ends. If you are someone who is still interested in reading this book and you haven't yet, go click off, go do it, and then go come back and let me know what you think at the end. If you're someone who's fully up to date with the Fractalverse and World of Eragon, let's continue. So, I mean, I think I just got to get this out of the way. We just got to throw hat in the ring on Team Pro. Aslaugar is one of the big bads of the entire Fractalverse. He's one of the ancient evils that's referenced in other pieces of literature. He is one of the things that are in the Great Beacon. We know that is a prison. Again, full spoilers here. We know that is some sort of prison for these ancient eldritch entities, and I believe that he is one of those same creatures that's there. All that being said, while I do think there are implications and things we're going to learn in Murtagh that are going to affect the Fractalverse, I don't think it's going to happen the other way around. I do truly think that Paolini is not going to go 100% Cosmere in this, in the sense that there's like crazy amount of world hopping and going back and forth. I do think these are going to stay somewhat separate. That being said, I think things we're going to learn, like as we have to defeat this ridiculous ancient evil, I think some of those learnings will be in some way imparted into the rest of the Fractalverse. And I'm very interested to see how he's going to pull that off. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most about this book is not something that I've really seen anybody else talk about, but it's the planning on this thing. Keep in mind, Paolini started writing this, I think, when he was 15. That mountain range has been called the Spine since he was 15, like 20-something years ago. Shit, I feel old. It's been called, it is literally the spine. It's literally, those mountain peaks are literally built on the back of dragon spikes. And when he was a kid, he must have gone, how cool would it be if there's a mountain range and underneath it's actually an ancient sleeping dragon? He did it. The mad lad absolutely did it. That actually truly means that some element of this, obviously not as fleshed out as it is now, and not the big probably intergalactic tie-ins and all this kind of stuff, but some element of this has been in the works for decades. And that is so cool that we're finally getting to see that paid off. Now, again, Bashel as a character I thought was interesting. The torture scenes and like the back half of this book freaking drags, man. Like, I get it. He gets tortured. It's like 50 I don't even know, man. Like, again, all the nonsense at the start of this book, all just to get one crystal that had energy in it so that he could use it later. Like, that's literally the entire first 325 pages of the book could be summed up as learn you need to go into the spine and you get this one item that you're going to need later. You could all this shit with the Weircats and the backstory on Durza was cool, I guess. That's not stuff that's going to get paid off until later. I mean, seeing a Razak egg in there, I mean, and the potential tie-ins between the Razak and Azlagar and all this, like, is there a connection there with their species? Because there is a strong fan theory, the idea that the Razak are also not from Earth, though it's actually based on a tweet that Paolini did, which is kind of funny. If I can find it, I'll put it on the screen. This idea that they came from the moon or something. There's a lot going on here. And I am a little bit scatterbrained on it, but it's because I'm so excited to see sort of the potential of where this goes. I mean, when you look at elements from To Sleep, like the Staff of Blue, an item that is what we would consider to be magic. I mean, it's technology that's so far advanced that it's perceived as magic. Is that the route that this is going to go? That's my biggest question, honestly, in all this is, like, you know, I mean, like Aeon Dor, are we going to see like magical programming? Is that truly what the language here is? And how are the spirits connected to this? Because the element of sorcery and like magicianship versus like traditional like spell casting in Eragon is so interesting to me. Like, we never really get explained to us what the spirits are. Are these some sort of extraplanal creatures that exist not just on this world, but elsewhere? And I will call it the Fractalverse because it is truly connected. Angela has made an appearance in the Fractalverse and in Murtagh. Also, for those of you, did you catch Angela in this book? She was very, very briefly mentioned. For those who didn't catch it, she was the woman who, the only other time Bashel ever made the mountains quake. And they called her by her Urgle name, which I believe is Moon Eater. So, yeah, if you didn't catch that, I thought that was a very fun little nod. But I was kind of surprised that she didn't make a full-on appearance in this book. Again, all that being said, the back half of this was almost a little bit gratuitous. Like the idea that you break Murtagh and he goes through this whole thing again, and then he has to, the whole sequence with the village and everything. I don't know. It just felt a little bit like almost a little Dresden File-y, where it's like this guy just can't catch a break, and every time you think it might get slightly better, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I don't know. To me, it verged on gratuitous. Like, it was just getting a little bit far. Like, I think that whole sequence could have been cut by like at least 50 to 100 pages. I think this book definitely could have been trimmed by almost 200 pages in the front and back end. There was just elements that I think, it just went really, really long. But yeah, I'm really curious to see, because the back half, this final battle was sick. It's like 65 pages. Like, it's not a short final sequence. I mean, him finally busting out the final fight in the catacombs, or whatever they ended up, however you want to describe them. That was sick. Like, it was dope. Like, I am truly very excited. The fact that he was actually able to harm Azlagar was really interesting to me, because again, it has implications beyond just Murtagh. So I don't know, Tim, I'm curious. And again, there was a whole post on Reddit recently where someone went through and like in-depth analyzed all the different places where we've seen like this brimstone and the fungus, like the mushrooms that are grown there, and the idea that there's like this mushroom may actually be like the spores of Azlagar, and that's what gave the seers in Urubane their ability to see. It's like the combination of the smoke. and also eating these mushrooms, and that's what impacted the boars that you see and what makes the meat taste so good. It's like a whole. It was again. I'll link it in the video description because I thought it was really interesting. This person's done a bunch of really in-depth, crazy, like almost encyclopedia-esque entries into trying to figure out all these different connections. But one connection that I think is almost certain, and why I feel so strongly that I think Aslager and the Razak are somehow connected, is the idea that the Razak also have the breath that confounds and befuddles humans. It feels too similar in too many ways to what Bashel does. And given the fact that we were very intentionally and specifically shown a Razak egg in the catacombs under Gilead, I think it's too much of a coincidence to not pull that back. So I do think there's a connection there, and I do think the Razak still have a part to play. I don't think they're done by any means. So now the question is, what comes next? Obviously we need to reconnect with Eragon. What is Arya up to? I mean, are the three of them going to get back together again? Red, blue, and green. I mean, that's going to be really interesting, to say the least. There's a lot of different places that Paolini can go with this, but I love the idea that we went from what in so many ways felt like a world-ending threat with Galbatorix to what is actually a world-ending threat. I mean, if you look at the map of Alagasia, and that's his back. I mean, he goes from like the north to Serta. I mean, that is a big boy dragon. I mean, if he decides to get up and start moving around, I mean, that is literally a world-ending cataclysmic event. How do we deal with that? That's really cool. And then the last question, who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? So many good theories. I'm kind of on Team Oren. I think we may have a jealous, bitter, not so much king anymore. I'm on Team Oren, or at least someone connected to him and Serta as the traitor, who Murtagh recognized but didn't know from where. Interesting. So there it is. That's sort of my full thoughts on the book. I think, again, I would probably pull this down to about a 3.5, 3.75. Again, I really did enjoy it, but man, looking, again, doing some more reading, going back from the first time, there are some parts of it that really are a slog. Yeah, it was enjoyable. And I think the thing that really stuck out to me the most was the idea that we're going to get so much more in this world, and I have no idea where it's going to go. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think what do you think about Aslager and the Great Beacon? Do you think there's these really strong tie-ins to the Fractalverse like I think there is? Who do you think the traitor is? Who do you think is the main spy for the Dreamers? I'm really curious to see what you all think. And if there are other fan theories that you've heard that you think are valid, drop them in the comments below. I am really interested to hear what you all think. That all being said, I have been getting into the weeds with a book that I have been meaning to read for a very long time, a series, First Law, Joe Abercrombie. I got the first one under my belt last week, and yeah, oh my goodness. Definitely gonna have to do a review on that one. Big fantasy kick recently, need to get back into the sci-fi as well. But I have a lot of really good things to say about the First Law so far. So I'm excited to continue to talk about that. Have a lot more videos coming down the pipe and a lot more content coming out on TikTok and Instagram. I've been a little bit slow on those fronts, but the content is going to start ramping up there in a big way. So if you've enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe here, or follow there over on social. I'm going to be trying to go out to I live in Los Angeles, so we have a ton of amazing like local bookstores and things like that. So I want to start just like going out to more of these places and experiencing book culture here in LA, because it's a good spot for it. So if that's something you're into or interested, as well as, again, short form book reviews and just impressions, that kind of stuff I don't talk about here on the channel, definitely go check that out. Appreciate the time, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.